The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead. We provide programs and services designed to assist and support the older town residents who wish to remain in their homes as they age. If we don't currently provide a service, we will try and connect you to that service. Call 311 or 869-6311 to get more information or receive services.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Welcome to Senior Talk Radio here at 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. This is Project Independence and You. I'm your host, John Ryan, and my co-host today is actually our producer, which is Christina Liu, because Otto can't be with us today, and Otto is always missed when he's not with us, because we're a family here. And before we even get to our guest, we have a wonderful, wonderful guest today. I just want to give a shout out to Dan. I mean, sometimes we give it to him at the end of the show, but in the beginning of the show, it's just as important. And through this whole COVID, and today and every Friday, we're doing this program in a different style. And there's always something that's going wrong, and he's there at the studio himself, figuring it out, and it's a new challenge every week. And for that, really, Dan Cox, who's the director and works for LIU and literally has put this program together for our 9-year anniversary was last week, is just a tremendous asset to the town of North Hempstead and to Christina and myself and Otto on the show. Now I want to get to our guest. Our guest today is Dahlia Ellison. And Dahlia is a licensed real estate broker with Douglas Elliman. And I met Dahlia through a networking group that my partner, Peter, many people listening to the show know Peter, started maybe about a year ago. And she really is a shining star. In my mind, everybody who comes on this show is only asked to come on the show because they have something to share. And when they share it, whether it's business, medical, social services, whatever, they have to share it from their heart. Otherwise, Christina doesn't want them and I don't want them. And that's the most important part of this show. We have to care about the people who are listening to it. And Dahlia, I don't know if you know this, next week, we're on TV for the week. So they reproduce, I mean, this is going to be reproduced, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the evening, maybe for 2 weeks, depending on, how it works out. So good morning, Dahlia, and thank you so much for participating with us this morning.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Christina. Thank you so very much for that lovely introduction, and good morning, everyone. I'm honored to be here today. I'm honored to be a part of your Project Independence, which does amazing work for our seniors. And happy anniversary. It was 9 years last week. Is that correct?
Yes, yep. Thank you so much.
That's wonderful.
Time flies. It really does. I mean, I haven't been here Christina's been here from the very beginning. I've been here for like 4 years, maybe, Christina?
I think it's longer, John.
Yeah, it might be.
Maybe it's like 4 or 5.
But it's just been, honestly, it's been wonderful. A great opportunity. Everybody's on the show. And it's a great opportunity because Christina gets, over the last 5 years, is the person, as the producer, she picks the guests, and if she doesn't pick them, she approves them. So if I bring somebody's name to Christina, she looks into the person, says, this is a good person. And so a lot of the credit has to go there, and I never take it from her because,
we're a team.
It's a team. We're the dynamic duo.
We're a solid team.
Dahlia, we've talked before, and actually later on in the show, I do want to talk about your son, but we'll get to him and we'll keep everybody in suspense as to why I want to talk about your son. Here's the simple, most basic question, and we'll get into details as the show goes on. Give me the first step that if you're a senior, but what's going to work for a senior is going to work for a young adult also. I'm ready to move on. But from a senior perspective, it usually means scale down. In this period of COVID, which is spooky, okay, what are some of the things that a senior should put into their mind before they even consider making the move?
You'd be amazed. I don't know if you know the statistic. We got 47 million senior citizens right now in US, and the youngest baby boomers are now moving into that retirement age category. So there is a lot of shifts that is going to be taking place. And as you mentioned, it's mostly about downsizing. It's mostly about being empty nesters, kids out of the house is either too big or the house has 2 stories and they would prefer to have a 1-story house. And there is a lot of unknown factors involved. A lot of us have lived our entire life in these homes, and to part with it takes a lot of emotional strength. So one thing that everybody should take into their mind before anything is, what do they want out of life now? What kind of lifestyle do they want? A lot of our seniors still want to stay in Long Island. They do not want to move out of the state, even though there is a lot of talk that people are moving south. We got a very big group of them who prefer to stay near family, stay where they are, but they don't want to worry about the maintenance of a single family home anymore. So the first thing is to sit down and have a heart-to-heart talk with yourself. See what you want out of life from now moving forward. Do you want to have a simpler lifestyle? Do you still want to stay near your family? Do you still want to have a sense of community? If so, how can you achieve that? Keeping your home is a big hassle. Moving to a community that serves 55 plus could be a very big asset these days, a very big lifesaver. You won't have to worry about the garbage collection anymore. You don't have to worry about landscaping anymore. You don't have to worry about so many little things that you need to be on top of when you have your own home. And yet it's still gonna have a sense of community. Does that feel like something you would want to explore? Then you start checking. And the first thing is to make sure you find a professional realtor who's going to act as an advisor and a guide for you. Someone you trust. Someone who's not there just to make a quick buck and walk away. Someone who's going to be there holding your hand every step of the way. Someone who will have a real team behind her. If you are buying, you need to have a good team as far as your mortgage broker goes. Someone who will be able to assess your financial matter and tell you with the sale of your home what you can afford and how much you should be able to get out of your whole transaction between the buying and the selling.
Just to interrupt you there, that's a very important point. Because as a senior downsizes, and I've had this discussion with people, you don't want to get into a bigger hole. You may find a house that you find is beautiful, but if you're selling a house, I'm going to make up a number for $1 million. Now, if you can afford it, that's fine. And you buy one for 1.2. Otherwise, don't get trapped. You get something for 6 or 7. You either pay off the mortgage or don't have a mortgage and put a few dollars in the bank. Then you could take a trip. You know, in better times. Better times will be here again, and you'll take a cruise and you'll fly to see your kids or whatever you have to do. But it's very important to sit down and have that conversation, because the money part of it is very important. And, you know, you can't go with, oh, it's a beautiful house and I never had a fireplace before. It's too late for that. You got to go with what makes sense financially. And then, like, I live in Great Neck. I have one daughter in Flower Hill, I have one daughter in Glen Head, and I have one daughter in Glen Oaks. We're never leaving Long Island. It's not happening. We've had that conversation before. Will we scale down at one point? Probably. But, you know, we have 3 kids, married, and 6 grandchildren. I'm not going any place to come and visit them every 3 months. Now we're babysitting tonight, we're babysitting Saturday night, and we're babysitting Sunday. I mean, give me a break, right? You know, maybe I should.
Sounds exhausting, John.
Oh.
I'm sure it's a joy and a pleasure.
It is. You can't. I love it. I love it. But what you're saying is 100% correct. You have to put the financial package together. It's not just the house.
Yeah. So the right advisor will get the right team on your side. And then from there, you will be able to make plans and decide where you want to go. Moving is very scary. Downsizing is even scarier. You raise the family and you want to stay in your home. So it has to be done the right way. Many times I have synchronized events. You put the house for sale, you start looking for a home, and the right person will be able to help you put all of this together so everything gets done the right way. Now, a lot of us are educated and we know a lot about life, but that doesn't mean that we can handle everything on our own. I come across a lot of my clients who say, oh, my cousin or my very good friend or colleague is an attorney, I'm going to use them for my real estate purposes. That's another factor in your real estate team. You want to use a real estate attorney. You don't want to use just any attorney. It has to be the person who is familiar with the local laws and has a, let's say, a titled company who will be able to maneuver the things that are necessary for that town. So again, professional people on your side as a team will be able to guide you and make the entire transaction much easier. And as you mentioned, just because you want to have a wood burning fireplace because you've never had it before does not mean that this is going to be a very well planned future for you. There is a lot more involved in that.
Agreed.
I'll tell you.
And actually,
Yeah, go ahead.
you made a very good point. Professional attorney, professional mortgage broker. Often people turn around and say, my cousin, I'll get a good deal from my cousin. And that's fine. But what does he do? He might be a marital attorney. Well, he doesn't know the ins and outs. And a year from now, if something goes wrong, then you have a feud in the family. So come Thanksgiving, nobody's talking to anybody because he thought he was doing the right thing for Auntie May. And he didn't know the rules that happened in Hapog or wherever you happen to be.
Absolutely. So make sure whoever you're working with knows what he or she is doing locally and with the circle they have around them. Since the pandemic, everybody has become more tech savvy. Even our seniors have learned to work on their laptop or on their little iPad, and they are able to communicate through that, which is very important because we are seeing the developers who are building these community homes, making these homes a lot more tech savvy, whether it's going to be a voice recognition device put into these homes, or it's the kind of lighting that's done that is going to mimic the homeowner's new lifestyle.
Let's go to the tech savvy because seniors are becoming more tech savvy. In the town of North Hempstead, we have all these different programs, which Christina will talk about. I can't remember the names of them, but they're significant, bringing the seniors up to date. Me, I'm a senior, I'm 67. I just got a laptop 2 weeks ago. So, and today's my first day I'm doing it by myself. Peter's not here to help me turn it on.
Wow.
This is a big accomplishment.
It is, I'm impressed.
But nevertheless, Dalia, let's go back to you with Tech Savvy Homes.
Yes, so these new communities are catering to the elderly. They're usually called the 55 plus, and they're popping up everywhere. And honestly, I'm looking at one myself because there is so much to offer to us. And there's a lot of bells and whistles that comes with it. As I was saying, it regulates the sleep-wake cycle of the new homeowner, the everyday rhythm of the homeowner. The voice-activated consoles and the lighting setting is going to be just so wonderful, and it's all about making life easier. Since the pandemic, what I'm seeing from a lot of retirees or soon-to-be retirees, I hear they say life is too short. We were planning to retire in a few years. Perhaps we were planning to move out of our home in a few years. Perhaps this is the right time to do so. And actually, whoever is toying with the idea, they should consider it very seriously because we have such high demand for homes in Long Island. I'm sure you have heard of it. Although I believe social media is making it sound a lot bigger than it is, but the truth is, because of the high demand that we are having and because of the low interest rates that seems to be never ever seen before and maybe never will be repeated, people are taking advantage. Buyers are trying to purchase homes. So homes that were not really selling before, and seniors who felt they were trapped in their homes, they have an opportunity of a lifetime to jump into the pool of sellers and have their homes marketed.
When you go back in time, mortgages like 30 years ago, 35 years ago were like 15%, and they really were. And now it's 2 3/4 to 3, maybe 2.5, depending on maybe a 10-year might be lower. It's absolutely absurd, but that's a big piece of, you put down your 20%, and if you're paying 3% on the remainder versus 10 or 12, or even 5 or 6, which was only 10 years ago, that's a big difference. So the refi market has been tremendous. It really has been, and it is a benefit. Now you are going to be paying a little bit more too. It's all relative. You're not going to sell your house for $1 million and buy something cheap. Everything's going to be relative, but it's the time to get what you want. Go ahead, Christina. That makes the most sense.
No, I think, it's like, because I always laugh, my husband is always on top of all of this stuff, and he's like, oh, we should sell. I'm like, but we're still young and working, so we still have to buy something new. But, that's why I feel like for someone, as Dahlia was saying, that's looking to retire or downsize, it's a really great option. I mean, just the last week, my brother and his fiance are looking for a house. Not an ideal time, obviously, because there's so much competition now with all these, buying, a house on the island.
And they're first-time buyers.
Yeah, first-time buyers.
Right, they're first-time.
So, but it was crazy. It was near the neighborhood by me, and they were all excited. We're going to look at it. We made an appointment. There's all different regulations now with all the COVID, protocol. And the line to get into the open house looked like you were waiting online for a concert or something. It was, public safety even drove down the street, so that was my firsthand experience of really seeing how high the demand is right now for these houses. And the real estate agents online were like, this isn't so rare. This is what's happening now, partly because only a certain amount of people can go in at one time, but there's just such a high demand of people coming in from all over the place. So.
Yeah, that's another thing that's, yeah, go ahead, John. Sorry.
No, man, that's what you see, what Christina's talking about?
Yes, we are seeing a big demand, okay? But here is the thing. People are leaving New York City, absolutely. We even have millennials who were never, ever going to consider coming to Long Island who are now beginning to look here. But when we talk about people leaving New York City, it's not just Long Island that we are looking at. A lot of them are moving to New Jersey, to Connecticut, to Westchester. So this frenzy in news is not necessarily the truth. Mm-hmm. I have people coming to me every single day. Oh, you must be so busy. Oh my God, what's happening? Yes, we are busy, but not necessarily in the way that news is talking about it. When Governor Cuomo ordered shelter in place back in March, the first frenzy was about renters. Renters came here renting $30,000, $40,000 a month, but they thought it's going to be a very temporary thing, maybe a month, and they would go back home to New York City. After a month or two, they started to see the benefits of moving to the suburbs. They started to see how beautiful it is to raise children and family in open space, with much more greenery, with much more land. And little by little, they started to look for homes. So the initial activity was not buy, sell. It was rent and then start to look at homes. And at the same time, those people who rented for a year are not even back to the market yet to purchase. They're still toying with the idea of making New York City their temporary home and making Long Island their permanent home. And the way we are looking at the trend right now, that's exactly what's happening, where it used to be they had a home in New York City and they had maybe a vacation home or a weekend home in Long Island. Now it's reversing and New York is becoming something of a pied-à-terre for them and making Long Island a permanent home. So with all that said, A lot of seniors are concerned about safety, which is very, very important. And the reason, as you mentioned, Christina, we are seeing lines in the, behind the homes is not only because there are so many buyers, it's also because we do not allow in more than one group of buyers at a time to look at the house. So seniors must understand that their safety comes first. And when we do show, it is done in the utmost cleanest and sanitized way possible. People are not let in without obviously masks. They have to have gloves on. We give them booties. We walk around with sanitizing wipes after them. Yet at the same time, once they do sign the COVID waivers, we tell them not to touch anything in the house, not to open any doors, not to even touch the cabinets. We will do everything for them. This way we make sure that our homeowners are safe. We want them to be able to welcome buyers without having their safety endangered, God forbid. So that's a very important thing. I want sellers to realize that even though it is pandemic and people think perhaps I shouldn't have anybody in my home, and that may cause them not to want to sell, they should feel assured that we take all the safety precautions for them. It's our number one priority more than anything else.
I had no idea that that is the way you show a house. I really didn't.
Oh, yeah.
In the pandemic.
I know. I feel for real estate agents because all these new things and all these documents that have to be signed, those waivers have to be signed before even the person's there, so there's so much another layer of all this. And then the sanitizing aspect, I give you guys so much credit in this whole new world.
Used to be in my trunk.
Frame?
Say that again.
Is there a time frame? If I'm going to see the house and I'm scheduled next, do I have 10 minutes and I got to get out? Or if I hang in there for an hour, that means everybody waits. How does that work?
I try to make every showings private. I don't like having people in a line. So I try to space the showings half an hour apart, so nobody needs to come and stand outside with their children. What is the point of doing that? I give them that half an hour because sometimes the person walks in and knows right away it's not the right house for them and they walk out. That's fine, I respect that. But then we have other times when somebody walks in and they really need to feel connected with the realtor. They have a lot of questions to ask. They have a lot of worries they want to share. They want us to help them and give them that time. So that half an hour is sufficient between each showing. I do not, there was a time that we would have open houses and many people would be roaming in and out and we don't have to worry about it. We don't do that. I give everybody enough time to feel that they've satisfied and they've had all their questions answered before moving on to the next person.
Yeah, because years ago, you could have a bunch of families in there at the same time.
Right.
Nobody was touching they were touching stuff. They're opening the closets. They're opening the kitchen cabinets. Right. Who wants to go back into your home with your family that lives there? You almost have to sanitize the place every time. So what Dahlia's doing is respecting the homeowner, which needs to be done. And at the same time, accommodating the potential buyer. It's a tough game today. It really is, trying to balance that act, which is the new rules under COVID. Go ahead, Dahlia.
We are in a service business. Service business means knowing what your clients and customers want and providing it for them. That's what sets us apart. If we cannot find the pulse of our clients and customers, we won't be able to be of service to them. It is the most important thing to know what they want. And every person has something different. It has to be addressed the right way, with compassion, with understanding, and with patience. And from there, everything falls into place. Everything synchronizes. All the events will come together one by one.
Compassion.
Well, it's very true.
I agree with you 100%.
it's also important for people to understand that, yes, we do have a lot of buyers. Yes, they will be moving fast because there is competition. People are not waiting too long. If they find a house they like, they jump on it right away. And a lot of sellers start to wonder, what if I find a buyer and I don't have a house myself yet? And that's another factor that make them hesitate to sell their home or even bring their home to the market.
That's
I
true.
want to give them a little bit of reassurance. Obviously, none of us can guarantee anything.
You know what? I want to touch on two things because she said the word compassion, which is very true. And I know Dahlia, and she's a wonderful, loving woman. And she's also actually very, very good friends with Anna Kaplan, our senator, who was on maybe about a month ago. Anna was on the program and is doing a wonderful job and up for election in November. And I didn't meet Dahlia through Anna, but it just, in conversation. And then also in conversation, we just had a little bit more of it this morning. We were introduced to Dahlia's son. And Dahlia's son does body repair. Not repair, but like fixing up the cars. And I want you to talk about it because I didn't know this morning that he had been sick. So we went to him during this past week. And my partner and I, my partner has a 50-year-old Mustang that looks like it's brand new after he worked on it. And actually, I'm going to go to Dahlia right now because I want to share his story because it's tremendous. And in this time of COVID, okay, we all have to look for the silver lining in everything. And that's Christina. She's the most positive person I've ever come across. I say there's no Christmas this year, and she's like, don't ever say that. There can be a Christmas. It'll be different, but there'll be Christmas. Tell us about your son, Dahlia. Then we're going to go back to you. So I'm not stealing from you, but he's a wonderful young man.
Thank you. He's in car detailing business, and about 8 years ago, 7.5 years ago, he was diagnosed with leukemia, and I spent 6 months in the hospital with him. And the interesting part is he was always interested in this business, and he was still going to college when all this happened, and he had to take a 1-year break from college. So he was very interested in the car detailing business, and believe it or not, when he did come home, his first project was in our dining room on a piece of a motorcycle, a very small piece, 1 foot by 2 feet. And at that time, he was still extremely fragile after 6 months of chemo and bone marrow transplant. But he was adamant about starting his business right there and then. So I sat with him in the dining room and held the piece for him so he could start wrap it. And at that time, I had no idea what is going on. And 7 years later, he graduated from college with business degree, and he opened up his own shop, and he is doing amazing. He works with a lot of cars and a lot of even boats. And that's also a passion for him, and I'm so proud of him. He's doing wonderfully. And thank you so much, John, for mentioning that.
I had no idea he was sick. I met him on this past week, and we're picking up the car this afternoon, but just a wonderful young man. And then when you told me what he had gone through, as opposed to being discouraged, disgusted, and quitting, he has the Christina Lou gene. You move forward as best you can, and he's a successful young man with a thriving business. And there's somebody else, unfortunately, that's sitting at home watching TV saying, poor me. You can't do that in life. You have to move forward as best you can, knowing that people will always support you. People are there to help you. And it's because of we went to him because of his mom, literally because the daddy recommended him. We think you're wonderful. So I was like, give him a shot. And we would recommend him to anybody. Anyway.
Thank you, John. It's very important what you just mentioned. People who are sitting home and feeling sorry for themselves need to know that they're not alone. There are people at all times who will help them, who will guide them. All you need to do is ask. And nobody needs to be left alone. And there is so much support around all of us. And there is so much to look forward to in life that it would be a shame to waste it sitting home feeling like a victim. Yes, life sometimes is very, very cruel. Um, but look for the silver lining and look for a little light at the end of the tunnel and just take that path and move on. And surely there will be people on your way to help you and get you out of the hole that you've been kind of fallen into.
Right.
No, it's just so interesting, because, just, the example of your son is just so touching and an inspirational viewpoint, and that just is the viewpoint that you kind of hope even during this time, and even in it kind of works its way to the real estate world and how we were, people are feeling and they're scared. And you had mentioned the unknown, and, during the break you had said something which was so great. And it's the point of this show really is to educate people, to get the word out, because that is the thing that causes the most anxiety for people is this unknown. And that creates fear. And then fear creates, you just want to stay in that, there's so many people I know during this time that were scared to leave the house, because there's so much unknown and you get all these different things and you see the news and everything kind of bogs you down. But, Dahlia, I think when you said just how important it is to not be so fearful, and to trust that things are going to work out and things are being done, the safest way possible.
Absolutely. The fear of unknown makes people freeze, make people not make a move. A lot of people are considering a sale, but they say, where would I go? How would the process go? And there is so much anxiety around that makes them just stay in their place and not make any moves. But I want everybody to know that the opportunities that are right now presented to the sellers is once in a lifetime thing. For the first time after perhaps 20 years, the dynamic of having a home has changed and people are going back to basics. Our homes used to be considered as a place to sleep in and maybe have 1 or 2 meals and then rush out of the house in the morning again. But it's changed now. People want to have a home that they can live in, work in, have family values. So don't be scared of putting your house on the market because there are a lot of good qualified buyers out there. And don't be scared that it's going to sell so quickly that you're going to be left without a house. That's not the case. Number one, the process has slowed down due to COVID. Things don't get done as quickly as it used to. So you have a few months before it's time for you to actually sign on the dotted line and move on. That's very important for you to understand. There is a phrase in the contracts that gives an on or about date, which is from the time that the contract is fully executed. The usual is on or about 45 to 60 days, which means after that 45 to 60 days, there is still a 30-day extension period that will be by law granted to the seller, and there is no reason for the seller to rush out of the house. With that said, once you decide you want to put your home on the market, we could actively look for a house for you that suits your needs and your current desires, and it will synchronize. I promise you, if you're working with the right professionals, they will be able to help you do it the right way. And what better time than now with the competition to get the highest price possible for your money, for your home. Now, that doesn't mean that you could just decide to overprice your home just because you feel like it. No, it still has to be market value, but know that the process is easier and there will be more customers for your home versus other times this was not the case. And from the looks of things, obviously nobody can predict what the market is going to be. But because of that pent-up demand, and because we usually have March and April as our busy months and we did not have it, we went into an explosion the end of June. So this pent-up demand and this activity is going to continue throughout the fall, perhaps even into 2021 without an interruption. So if people are thinking, okay, I missed out on the chance of selling my home because it's not the quote unquote springtime anymore, they don't have to worry about that. We still have a lot of buyers still looking, and there is shortage of inventory. And even after that, we have the renters who did rent for a year. Their time is coming up. Their lease is going to be over in a few months, and they still need to buy. So again, don't feel like you have missed the boat and you should not put your house on the market and wait till next spring to do that. You still have a good chance to be able to find the right buyer for your home.
Dalia, I've often heard, before you put your house up for sale, you should paint it and do this, that, and change it. I mean, like, if you're going to bother doing that, you might as well stay there, in my opinion. But that's besides. Does that make sense? Or, if you painted it 9 years ago, why am I going to repaint it? Maybe there's some scuffs on the wall. Does it make a big difference?
Thank you for mentioning that, because that's a very, very good question and very important one. Sellers hesitate to sell also because of that. And as you said, okay, they painted a few years ago. Do they really want to bother going through this again? I would be the first person to discourage people from doing so. I always tell my sellers, if the money you're going to be putting in the house right now is not going to be doubled by the time you sell it, there is no reason to do it. If you are going to put a new bathroom in the house, what if the next buyer does not even like it? Now you wasted $10,000, $15,000 for what? It did not add any value to your home. Now that doesn't mean that your house has to be a mess and you present it just like that. No, having a house well maintained is very important. You want the buyer to walk in and feel homey in that place. Now, could this mean that you need to do little inexpensive things, such as washing your windows, making the sunlight come through? Yes, absolutely. You spend a couple of dollars, you do that. Could it mean that the front door needs to be cleaned up, or maybe have a nice bright color paint, which is also maybe $100 or so? That's small and that's doable. Do you do your landscaping beautifully so there is a curb appeal, and before people come into the house, they feel invited and they do walk in? Yes, those things are necessary to do. But I'll be the last person to tell you, spend this and spend that so you could sell your home. No, you don't do that.
Okay. Yeah, because you read about it, and I've often, people say, oh, no, you can't sell the house, you got to fix it. But I agree with you. You change the kitchen cabinets and you put a nice, beautiful mahogany, but I want that bleached wood, or vice versa.
Right.
And so now you spend $25,000 that I'm not going to give you back. Dalia Ellison from Douglas Elliman, who is a licensed real estate broker, and we're having a wonderful conversation. But first of all, Dalia, could you please give out your phone number? Because we haven't given that out this morning.
Sure, it's 516-707-9022.
707-9022. 516, that's a direct line?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, for somebody who called to want to talk to Dalia, please give her a call. And where I want to go now, this is our last segment. Time flies. And we're talking about how to get rid of the house and buying a new house. But I want to touch, especially from a senior perspective, Christina's brother's looking for a house. And I'm not saying it's not emotional. That's probably a little frustrating to see how much a house is really going to cost. And he doesn't have a house to sell to go into the house. Christina owns a house. So therefore, if she was going to buy another house, she has equity built up already. Most seniors have plenty of equity built up. Many of them have the mortgage paid off in their 70s. I'd like to touch on what you come across as the emotional trauma that seniors go through, because I'm sure you even have a husband and wife disagreeing. At that point in time, even though they've lived together for 30, 40, 50 years, and they love each other, I think myself and my wife, I think we would have different, nothing to fight about, to be honest with you, but stuff that's like, oh, in the next house, I don't know what I want. We in our house now, we had an extension put on. years ago, and we had a deck put off our bedroom that just leaks. I'd never have a deck again in my life. So we know what we wouldn't have. We know what we wouldn't have in the next house. But anyway, just, you know, what you've come across senior-wise, emotionally,
It is
which
a
is a hard,
very
I
emotional.
know it's a tough question.
John, this is very important what you're saying. It is a very emotional process, and my heart goes out to them. Again, some of them have lived there for so many years. You know, when you raise a family there, when you have memories from the time that your children were born, and a lot of times even we see walls with different age and timeline of their height still marked on the walls. This is memory. And this is etched in your heart. And to take part from it is not an easy thing. And then there is another factor that a lot of seniors say or feel, even though it's not true, that if they leave this home, they're going to become dependent and they will lose their independence, and then life is not going to be what it used to be. None of these need to happen. And I cannot stress the importance of finding a professional realtor who's going to work on your behalf, who's going to hold your hand, who's going to advise you and guide you accordingly. If you trust that person, let them guide you through the process. It doesn't have to be rushed. It doesn't have to be a cold transaction. It will be done little by little. We will be able to provide the guidance and the support you need to even pack things up for you and unpack them for you and help you decide where you could move to not only be able to have your equity move to a different place, and as you mentioned before, John, also have savings, and not only be able to keep your independence, but also have a much easier lifestyle without all the, as I mentioned before, the maintenance issues, without the headaches, and still have a community and still be close to your family. A lot of these 55 plus places are they're offering so much to the seniors. It would be a shame not to explore your choices. And again, when we don't know the process, it's scary. There's a lot of anxiety built in the unknown. Once someone comes in and puts everything out in the open for you, things will become easier. And us realtors, a lot of times do play the advisor and also the confidant to our clients. Yes, there are a lot of times we see fights among the couples. And as you mentioned, they are in love. They've lived together for 60 years, but there are differences because each individual has individual needs. And it doesn't mean because you love each other, you do have difference of opinions and you may each want something differently. All needs could be addressed. All needs could be talked about, brought into the open at a table together and decide where is the meeting point, where we can make this work for both of the husband and the wife so everybody feels happy and all these argument could go away. Again, it's all because they just don't know what they could be getting themselves into.
Okay. And the most important thing for a senior, they have Social Security, and some of them have pensions. This is their biggest asset. Very few people. I mean, younger people, it's different. You got a 401k. Not many 75-year-olds have a 401k because it didn't really exist 40 years ago for them to pile money into. This is their biggest asset. This is what they can definitively use to reorganize their life and enjoy the rest of it. And actually what I'm doing is giving out Dahlia's number again, which is 516-707-9022. Not because I'm interviewing her today, but the reason she is on the show today is going back to the word that she used before, compassion, because Dahlia is compassionate. And I don't care, should she make money 100%? Everybody should make money in their business. But I also know that Dahlia is the person that was going to send you in the right direction for the right reason, not just to turn around and say, guess what? I made an extra $2,000 and I know that couple will be miserable for the rest of their life. That's not Dahlia. And she wouldn't be here if that was her. what it is we need people in general in this world today that care about their fellow human beings, ultimately, if I'm saying it properly. And that's a Dahlia, that's a Christina, and that's many of the people we've had on this show, which is, in my mind, very, very important. And for a senior, they listening to the show and seeing it next week, you have to have that heart to heart. And it can be hard. And you got to bring the kids into it, but you can't let the kids control it. This is between mom and dad. And just because the son or the daughter doesn't want you moving, that's, they may move next year into another state because their job takes them that way. You have to live your life as the senior. That's my opinion.
Being a kid myself, a child of a parent, and also being a parent, I feel like kids feel that parents don't really understand. They undermine our experiences. And sometimes, as you mentioned, they just want to tell their parents, this is what you're going to do. No, you got to give us parents and give the seniors what they deserve, the respect that they deserve. They've gone through so much in life to get where they are. That experience counts for a lot. Don't diminish their values and their fears or whatever it is that they're going through. Honor them and give them the right to make their voices heard and their wishes to be taken care of. Yes, kids don't necessarily know what's best for parents. Absolutely not.
I agree. And you know what? Again, in other words, you're saying honor. It's so important when it comes to a parent. Yes, when it comes time to take care of them and they have dementia, something's gone wrong, you got to turn around and say, Mommy, you're moving in with me, you have to go here, you can't walk anymore. That's a different story. But when they're independent and they're comfortable, then get into a community where you can meet friends, have, when times are better, non-COVID, have dinner with your friends and go out to the pool and wind up socializing. Because socialization is very important for us. It's important.
Right, you could even end up with more socializing than you currently have, frankly. And it's just so nice, because I was sitting here and thinking, there's so many different, not that we're promoting anyone, but, there's so many different real estate people out there. But I think especially when you're dealing with the senior population, it's a certain level of understanding, based on all the issues that we laid out. Obviously, it's very overwhelming. And I think it is important to know and to deal with someone that you feel comfortable with, that isn't rushing you or pressuring you. Dahlia, just sitting here for this hour, you could just tell that will lay out all the options, and I think that's so important too. It's knowing what fits for you, because it's going to be a different fit for every person, what you might be, into. And I think the importance to stress to seniors is, don't feel rushed or pressured to make some kind of quick decision. You're able to kind of just understand all your options. And I think what this will do for people is relieve some of the stress for people that were trying to figure out if they should sell now or whatnot. So I thank you for that, Dahlia, because I think that's just so incredibly important.
Thank you. Also, just to mention, yes, if they feel rushed, they don't have to put their home on the market this year. However, give yourself the opportunity of sitting with someone and evaluating your options. If after that meeting you still feel like you need another year or so staying at your home, at least now you do it confidently without second guessing yourself and without wondering if you are quote unquote missing out on something in life.
Absolutely.
No. Yeah, that's important to remember.
Because at the end of the day, as Dahlia has repeated many times, it's the homeowner, it's the senior couple that has to come first. And believe it or not, and I know Dahlia, and Christina told me you questioned about doing an hour versus a half hour. The hour is up. I actually feel bad to say goodbye, because this has been not only educational, but fun. It really is. And you're a remarkable woman. And I'm so proud that I call you my friend. I mean that very sincerely. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on the show and sharing all your knowledge with our listening and now our viewing audience. So I want to thank Dahlia. You've been listening to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.